We're now told that after doing some market research, marketers at the company find that the initial demand for this new tablet is about 1.9 million. However, due to new devices entering the market, demand is dropping by about 0.11 million units per year. Okay, so first of all, that does not really tell us to model anything, but we want to figure out when demand will tank completely. So we know that initially, demand, so we're looking at demand as a function of time, and we know that because it's demand per year. So output over input. So here's our demand, and I'll just allocate a letter D to that, and I'll say as a function of time. So we know that initially the demand is 1.9 million. However, it's dropping due to new things entering the market at a rate of 0.11 million units per year. Okay, well, if we look at demand, we know that initially it is 1.9, and it's dropping by 0.11 times the number of years. So 0.11 times the number of years, which is T. According to the above assumptions, when will demand tank completely? Well, what does that really mean? That means, that's asking us, when will demand hit zero? Okay, so if we know that what we're finding is time, and we know what we're given is the demand, so we would replace demand with 0, and we could solve this equation. So very similarly, we're going to go ahead and do this using technology. We'll enter in our next equation, and what I'm going to do, so you don't have to do this if you don't like to, I'm going to deactivate the first equation because we're going to come back and use it in a minute. So you see how the little black box disappeared? I can select it again by going over my equal sign and pressing enter, but I'm going to deselect it so that one doesn't graph. Instead, I'm going to graph 1.9 minus 0.11x, and then right below that, because I want to know when is demand 0, I'm going to plot a horizontal line through 0. And so now when I go to graph it, everything still fits on my window okay, but you notice that here's my demand, and it doesn't really reach 0 because my time doesn't go out far enough. So apparently this is going to take longer than, longer than 15 years. So let me go out to 20 and see what happens. And here's demand, so demand reaches 0 at this point in time. Well, what we can't see here is the line going through D equals 0. So the horizontal line doesn't show up, but it's there. So we'll go again to second calculate. We want to do the intersect. The first curve we'll select is the 1.9 minus 0.11x. We'll hit enter. It jumps to the second curve, and you'll notice that it's at y3 equals 0. So it's on our horizontal line that we can't really see very clearly. And now I'm going to implement my guess by just getting pretty close. This is really not that important, but we find out that time would be 17.3 years. So after 17.3 years, we would expect demand to tank to 0. Now, we're asked further, the company decides that it should slow down production when the demand drops below the production. When can they expect this to happen? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to graph demand and production on the same set of axes, and we're going to look at time. So because demand and production are measured in million units, it's okay to have them sharing the same axis. We know that here's what the demand looks like. That's the demand function. I'm going to come over here and just change my color. And we know that this is something to the effect of what production looks like. So that's my P curve. And I want to know when is demand going to drop below? So you notice that production continues to increase, demand decreases, and at this point in blue, after this time, the demand is dropping and is below the production. Now you're manufacturing more than you can sell. So it doesn't make sense to do that. So what do we want to know? Well, we want to know, when does demand equal production? Well, what we can actually do here is think about these two separate functions and see when do they intersect. So I'm going to go over to my calculator, and I'm going to go back to my y equals. We don't need this y equals 0 anymore. And I'm going to reselect the 1.2 plus 0.8x. And now I'm going to graph them so I can see there's my production, there's my demand, and I'm going to see where they intersect. So second calc, intersect. That's going to be my first curve. That's my production. There's my demand. And I'm going to guess about where I think that is.